talks about the payments that we make in government, but there's also a big, huge hit on the budget. It's not a check that we make out. It's things that we allow in the tax code to take place. Now, when you look at each one of these, this is our impact on our budget. The first one, it's about $650 billion. $650 billion. That's healthcare that we get provided by our employers. Now you think about this. The employer takes a deduction for the health care, but the employee doesn't have to pick it up as income. That's what we're talking about here. So that lost tax revenue on not picking it up as income or not giving the employer a deduction, because if you don't give the employer a deduction, the corporate taxes will go up. If you make the employee pay taxes on it, their income tax will go up. That's what we're talking about. Just that one thing alone, allowing people across the country to have health care, not get picked up on the W-2 as income, or not allowing the company to get a deduction, cost our government about $650 billion. That one item. I don't know how many people would say, I want my health care to be taxable from now on. But again, policy decision. If we're in the hole this year about $1.3 trillion, in 1 year alone, we're overspending our budget by $1.3 trillion, you can make up almost half of that if you change your concept on this. And I'm not picking one side or the other, I'm just giving you information. The second one is deduction for mortgage interest. That's about almost $500 billion. So if you wiped out, no one could have a deduction for mortgage interest, we immediately would, and you'd have to pay taxes on additional income, you'd immediately have another $500 billion. Again, trying to chip away at not only that $1.4 trillion deficit for the year, but make up for the $62 trillion that we've accumulated over time. So we got all of these debts we have to make up. I don't know, and I go through each one of these. Reduce rates on dividends, that's the next one. Earned income credit is the next one. Deductions for charitable contributions on the next one. Now, as you go through this, thank you, awesome. As you go through this, I mean, think about if we were the kings for a day, all of us, we got to decide we could fix this problem today. Would you all be willing to take all of these away? I think we'd have a little bit of an argument on some of these, don't you think? And that right there doesn't solve the problem all by itself. But that is something we have to talk about. That's something that could help solve the problem, but we don't do it. Effective tax rates. This I always like to show people because this is different. The first one, I don't know if you all can see it clearly, but the first one is less than $10,000. They basically get money back. Next one is $10,000 to $20,000, still get money back net on their taxes. $20,000 to $30,000, still get money back. It's only from 30 to 40 on up to more than $1 million where people are actually paying net more tax than they're getting back. For the United States government, less than 50%, or just less than 50% of the people pay zero in tax. Zero. That's part of the problem in our country too, that we have less than 50% paying zero in tax. It's not sustainable. So we're spending more than we take in, we're charging less to make it more balanced. These are the decisions our elected officials should be talking about. I'm not giving you the answer to each one. I'm just telling you, we should be having a robust discussion on each one of these slides. How are we going to address this? Is it fair that less than 50% of people are paying zero in tax? Is that fair for our country? And can we afford it? Now this is what happens. When they talk about the fiscal cliff, what happens? These are the individual items. We got the tax cuts. If we don't resolve that by December 31st, let's just say, for example, we let them all fall off and we don't do anything about them. If we let every one of the things that run out December 31st and we don't roll them forward, we actually will save about $500 billion in our deficit. So imagine, it's quite an example where if Congress just went home and did nothing, our country could move ahead by $500 billion. It's not like we didn't think about this before, that if they stayed home, our country could be better. But here's one financially could show you, $500 billion. Now that's only if you agree with all these things that would happen if they went home and didn't do anything. But this is what happens. So if they let the tax cuts just run out and they don't replenish that, that'll save $110 billion per year. Now remember, we're showing about a $1.4 trillion deficit. If we go forward, how are we going to make up the $110 billion? Where are we going to get the money from to pay for the $110 billion? Alternative minimum tax patch, $125 billion. You can go through each one of these things. That's how much it costs us, or how much we will save. How much it costs us if it remains and we replenish it. How much we'll save if we let it run out. And again, I'm not telling you to let them run out or to keep them. I'm just showing you the numbers. This is what our policy leaders need to make a decision on. This right here, when you start adding in the state and local government tax, you can pick Virginia's number 17 over here. So there's another $3.6 thousand per person the deficit in your state added to the $210,000 deficit. Rhode Island, where I come from, another $18,000 per person. I think I would only in Connecticut, another $49,000 per person, their debt. So now what I try to do here is, these are all the bottom on Come Back America, to give you some of these. It'd be terrible to tell you the problem, not tell you how to fix it. So here's some of the things. What we need to do, we call them our 6 principles for reform. Number one, as we're trying to solve our problems for our country, we should go through each one of these. Number one, it should be pro-growth. We don't want to be the same. We don't want to slide back. We want to advance our country forward. So any decision should be the premise should be, when I'm done, we have pro-growth in our country. Number two, that it's socially equitable. Now notice what it says, socially equitable, not socially equal. There's a difference between the two. We want to make sure that it is equitable. Everyone's paying a fair share, not equal share. Everyone's paying a fair share, and benefits are provided in a fair manner, and it's what we can afford to do. Number three, obviously, we're America. We're not a third world country. It has to be culturally acceptable, the things we're doing. I think we'd all agree, if there are people in our country who have absolutely no way to provide for themselves, there probably should be some sort of safety net to protect them. We're not a communist country where we just abandon everyone or say everyone should be in this net. But it has to be culturally acceptable. If you ever want to get something passed that'll save the problem and you don't address that, it's not going to pass. The fourth one is, we don't think it's automatic. It has to be mathematically accurate. You know, you just look at some of the cities and towns, they have unfunded pension plans. I've seen them. Assume rates of return, 8.5%, 8%. Maybe the numbers work in there. That is not mathematically accurate. That's a mistake. And their beliefs are incredibly wrong. 5 has to be politically feasible. This is important. I can stand up here and say anything I want to you about how it can get solved. But if I need the vote of more than half of you in this room, I better find a way to get more than half of you to vote in that same direction, or it will not happen. And right now, with the two sides killing each other, it's not going to happen now. Right now, with a presidential election taking place, it wouldn't be in the Republicans' best interest to make President Obama look good. So they're not going to do it between now and November. It's not going to happen. It wasn't going to happen all this year. For President Obama to do something and do whatever is mathematically acceptable may not be politically feasible to get it done. And so, because there's an election, and because the race is so close, nobody wants to alienate those undecided voters. And as you can imagine, knock off mortgage interest. You think you're going to alienate a few people? I think you will. You know, say you're going to charge tax on health insurance, I think you just lose the election. You know, you pick any one of those. So that's why nothing's going to happen between now and then. And the last part, this bipartisan support is really important. It cannot be fixed unless everyone agrees to fix it, and they don't try to chop your legs out afterwards after you get it resolved. So that has to be done. What are the areas? Budgeting. Budgeting is important. The last 3 years we've had overspent our budget, 1.4 trillion, 1.3 trillion, 1.2 trillion. You can't last that long. You couldn't do that in your home, but our government's doing it. We have to address Social Security, we have to address health care, Medicare and Medicaid, defense, taxes, and other.